Chapter 4. Discipline. The first and best victory is to conquer self. Plato. I could have been hanging out with Lady Gaga. Instead, I was in my hotel room resting for the next day. I can't tell you how many nights I spent gazing at some gorgeous skyline from the window of a hotel room in a city I couldn't go play in. That night I was in Osaka, Japan with my band for the second time. We finished playing our show, signed autographs, and everyone got cleaned up to go out and eat. Osaka has to be one of the most inspiring cities for fashion and art, not to mention it has one of the coolest outdoor skate parks in the world. I wanted to hang out all night, but I knew I had interviews early in the morning and I'd be useless unless I got some sleep. The next day, I had to listen to the guys bragging about what a great time they had seeing Lady Gaga and meeting her band. She happened to be playing in Osaka the same night we did. Talk about a small world. It's sacrifices like these that hurt, but discipline always pays off, eventually. When you make decisions to discipline your mind and body and adhere to them, it flushes out fear, and it replaces it with faith. I once heard Ronnie Feist, a bronze medal champ of the X Games for motocross, give his testimony while working his butt off at home training. He said the X Games are won here. He meant the crazy steep hill he would run up every day, or doing relentless push-ups, or going around the racetrack again and again, building up his muscle memory by doing stunts. He meant that discipline was how he won his medals. Discipline prepared him for what the future would bring. I used discipline to hone my craft as a performer and as a writer. In the early days of developing my talents as an artist, I remember spending New Year's Eve, among other nights, alone. I'd sit in my basement and practice writing songs, then perform them in front of the mirror to sharpen my skills. I'm naturally an introvert, so I was used to being alone, but it wasn't always easy when I knew my friends were out having fun. I used discipline to push through the writer's block. I'd fill up my wastepaper basket over and over with crumpled pieces of paper. I'd stand up and pace back and forth for hours just to get one line, or sometimes nothing at all. I thought it wasn't working, but little did I know that this discipline was building the foundation that I am now standing on. Discipline is a skill. We're not born with it. You have to learn how to say no, because it's almost always easier to say yes. Here are some of my favorite examples of a disciplined life. In other words, this is what I was actually doing all those years instead of doing whatever I felt like doing or whatever others wanted me to do. Eating ice cream is easy. Making something that matters is hard. Seth Godin. Radio TKO. Effort only fully releases its reward after a person refuses to quit. Napoleon Hill. I've gotten so many rejection emails from record labels, managers, and booking agents I could print them out and fill this book with them, or wallpaper every room in my house. Well, maybe not that many, but dang, there's been a lot. The whole point of getting a manager, in my opinion, is to have someone who can help you form relationships with people who can leverage your career. Managers can help you get onto bigger tours, opening for better bands, and get you sponsorships, festivals, and songwriting collaborations. The list can go on, but the point is, with proper management and good songs, an artist can take off fast. The typical response you get from any music manager when you're being rejected is, "Our roster's full right now, and we're focusing on the artists we currently have, but check back with us in 6 months." I dutifully follow up with them, only to find out they just signed one of my friends' bands. Are you kidding me? That's the unfortunate thing about the music business. Truth be told, it's who you know. One manager I reached out to for about 3 years. He was really nice about turning me down. He even invited me to meet with him at his office and gave me a bunch of advice. He seemed bummed he couldn't help me out more and said he always thought I should be bigger. It was a great pat on the back, but nothing came of it. I didn't let it stop me. I kept pursuing my dreams, touring, writing songs, and releasing records without a manager. Eventually, I got a radio hit. One of the radio promoters kept bugging the president of Tooth & Nail Records saying, "Avalanche is a hit, it's a hit." My song Avalanche continued to climb the charts, and I got massive exposure, which helped hugely with touring and put my music in front of people who had never heard of me. Record sales tripled for The Chase and increased the merchandise sales at my online store. At its peak, Avalanche hit number 4 on the Christian Contemporary Hit Radio charts and made an appearance in Billboard magazine. I was stoked. I took a picture of it and sent it to my wife right away. My phone started ringing and offers started coming in from bands and their managers for me to tour with them. I remember I was on tour at the time and I'd just gotten off the stage when I got a call from the manager I had mentioned earlier. He said he'd heard a lot of great things and that my songs were playing nonstop on the radio. Now all of a sudden he was interested in working with me. For 3 years I tried to work with this guy and nothing ever came of it until I finally got through. Radio opened the doors I couldn't have opened myself by just touring. It allowed me to be in 1,000 places at once. Let me also say there are many bands that have done it without radio, so if you're not a radio-friendly band, don't worry. Radio is a hard nut to crack, and I'd like to share another story about that because it didn't happen overnight and I put a lot of work into it. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Jim Rohn. I hired 2 companies to do radio promotions for me in Canada, and both were professional and hardworking, but they couldn't produce results. They always returned my phone calls and gave me detailed reports, but still, no radio ads for Manafest. Efforts don't pay the bills, results do. As you can imagine, this got expensive quickly. It was frustrating because the company I really wanted to hire wouldn't call me back or respond to my emails. In the music industry, the professionals just don't work with anyone. They can afford to be picky and only work with the artists they truly believe have a hit song. That way, the radio stations trust that what they bring them is quality material. If they start lowering their standards for a quick buck, it would hurt their business in the long run. On the other hand, there are some people in the industry who claim to be pros and talk a good game. They tell you just what you want to hear, and they're happy to take your money whether or not your song does well because they have their own bills to pay, so be cautious. So how did I crack radio in Canada? I disciplined myself to make time every couple of weeks and sent the radio team I wanted to work with short emails, keeping them up to date on what I was doing with my career, without being too annoying, of course. I was starting to have some success, so I sent a polite reminder highlighting my latest achievements, and that's how the squeaky wheel got the grease. Here's an example of the email I would send. Hey guys, hope you are well. I just wanted to keep you up to date with what's going on. I was recently nominated for a second Juno Award. We just finished a North American tour playing for 500 to 1,000 people a night, and now I'm back home. I've currently sold over 3,000 copies of my album The Chase in Canada, and I'd love it if you guys would consider working one of my singles to radio. Here's a link to my latest music video and songs, www.manafest.net. Thanks again, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. After numerous emails and phone calls, one day my phone buzzed. It was a response from the radio promoter. Finally, we set up a phone meeting to chat about the songs, and it turned out that one of the owners of the company grew up in the Durham area, in the same town I did. It was an instant connection. Finding common ground can make a big difference. He said that they listened to the record and they thought my song, Every Time You Run, could work for Hot AC Radio. The gloves started coming off. I wanted to smash this radio door open. First, he said, you have to make some edits to the song so it fits the Hot AC Radio format the stations are looking for. Some artists get bent out of shape when they're told to change their music, but I wasn't going to bang down this guy's door asking for help and then not listen to what he had to say. So I said, whatever you need, man, consider it done. We sped up the tempo of Every Time You Run and added a snippet of the chorus to play at the very beginning. Not a big deal. But even then, after nailing all their changes, they still gave me a big disclaimer. It's not that they were hesitant or didn't think the song was any good, but they just wanted to be clear that they could do everything they could but couldn't guarantee the radio stations would add my song. That sounded strange because all the other promoters I'd worked with before were optimistic. Then again, they also made promises they couldn't keep. So here we go again, another radio campaign, except this time is going to cost me just over $8,000 to promote my song for 3 or 4 months. After the first week of promo, radio stations began adding the single. One of the first stations was Chum FM. This was huge, and Much Music added my music video into heavy rotation. I flipped out when I heard this. If this happened today in California, I'd do a victory lap around our house on my skateboard. This meant that Every Time You Run would play on one of the biggest radio stations in Toronto, including my hometown of Pickering. Friends I hadn't heard from since public school and family members started contacting me on Facebook to congratulate me. I felt like a hometown hero with my first commercial radio hit in Canada. It was a crazy time and I loved every second of it. I was nominated for Artist of the Month by a radio network with multiple stations across the country, and all at once thousands of people across Canada were listening to my song. Even though Every Time You Run was doing well in Canada, it wasn't connecting with radio stations right away in the United States. We heard all kinds of excuses. There's too much rap in this song, or if it sounded more like Toby Mac, we'd add it. My wife and I prayed, asking God that radio stations would see the vision of the song. The record label was behind me, and I truly believed this song could impact lives. So we mobilized my fans to start requesting the song at radio stations in the United States. Weeks later, one of the stations did some testing and came back with positive results. We took these results to other stations as proof, and one by one, stations began playing the song. Every Time You Run resonated with the listeners and ended up in the top 10 charts. Best of all, I've heard countless stories from fans about how the song touched their lives and continues to do so. When I was in Texas recently, a woman told me she was praying for her son to give his life back to God, but he wasn't interested. I always share my story about how God set me free from fear and my childhood struggles before I sing Every Time You Run. For the first time, her son bought something Christian, my CD. He told her, "Mom, what he said tonight and that song got through to me." She thanked me with tears in her eyes, hugged me, and walked away. That's a TKO. Good isn't good enough. What a person does on a disciplined, consistent basis gets him ready no matter what the goal. John Maxwell. One of the most common questions I get from young artists is, how do I get signed? It's so important to note that signing a record deal isn't the final victory lap in your music career, with you running through the red ribbon saying, "I've made it." Signing a deal is just one of the small steps towards building a successful career in the music industry. Let me say it right now that you don't need a record deal to get started on a music career. You can write and record something in your home studio and for less than $60 have it distributed online through TuneCore or CD Baby. These services can make your music available almost worldwide on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, and many other digital platforms. It's not like it used to be when record labels were the gatekeepers that only let a select chosen few through the door. Plus, it's all about online sales these days. Don't go after brick and mortar stores, they're dying out. Even if you do sign with a label, you're the one touring and peddling your CD across the globe, not them. You're going to be the most passionate about your music, not anyone else, and never forget that. Just recently, I've worked with about 7 different record labels around the world. In India, the United States, Canada, Europe, South Africa, and Japan. However, these aren't all official record deals, but what is called a licensing deal, in which I still retain ownership of the masters. My recommendation to any artist is to stay independent as long as you can until you need a label to do what you can't do yourself. The truth is, you can do more and get paid more as an independent artist than you think. You just have to try. The key to my success in signing with a record label was consistency, and being consistent takes discipline. At first, the record labels didn't like my music because I still needed time to develop. It wasn't good enough. Good isn't good enough. There are lots of musicians out there making music that we all agree is good, but how much of it is great? Most of the people I know who work at record labels are very passionate about music, and they could probably make more money doing something else, but because of their passion for music and its ability to touch people's lives, they stay in the game. But if they want to keep their jobs, they have to produce best-selling records. Before a label signs any artist, the higher-ups of the label first ask, can we make money off this artist? Will it sell? If not, unfortunately, they will pass. There used to be a day when A&R reps of record labels had more signing authority to take risks on bands. Now, because budgets are so tight, with many labels going out of business, they could lose their jobs if they sign one wrong act. Destiny is never late. I will study and prepare, and someday my opportunity will come. Abraham Lincoln. I've come to learn it's never been about me sitting around waiting for someone to open the door. I've always had to kick the door down. I never sit on the sidelines waiting for God to show up. I like to get in there and get my hands dirty anticipating a breakthrough. I may not get the answers I want at the time I want them, but let me tell you that no matter how long it takes or how many chances you need to get it right, destiny is never late. Trevor McNevin from the band 1,000 Foot Crutch had an intricate role in my success as an artist. I originally met the Canadian singer in Hamilton, Ontario at their CD release party for the album Set It Off. I'll never forget the stage we played on there because the audience could walk around the whole thing in a circle. I opened for them 2 nights in a row with a few other bands, and Trevor and I hit it off immediately. Afterwards, we kept in touch. Whenever they played locally or shot a music video, Melanie and I would drive across town to support them. We were fans of their music back then and still are. I was still working at my office job when I got a call from Trevor one day. He said I was on his heart and he wanted to help me with my music career. He invited me over to play him some of the music I'd recorded, and he shared some of the tunes he was working on as well. He said they'd recently got out of a deal and were now signing with Tooth and Nail Records. He told me about the music business, managers, booking agents, and told me stories about touring. I got super excited because Trevor genuinely wanted to help me out. I've had other artists offer to help me, but there was always a long, sketchy contract sitting at the end of the table. This time, there were no strings attached. Within 2 months, Trevor set up a showcase for me to play for the president of Tooth and Nail Records at a venue called the Market Hall in Peterborough, Ontario. I don't know about you, but when a close friend recommends a restaurant or a movie or a new band, I normally take it to heart and give it a chance. That's exactly how I got introduced to a label for the first time. Because Trevor was the one recommending me, the president listened to my songs with more of an open mind. If I had just sent my music to him myself, he might have listened, but it wouldn't have had the same chance. It's all about the introduction and whom it comes from in the music business. There are so many gatekeepers, you have to get past all the naysayers. Even if you convince one person at a label, that person now has to get the rest of the office behind it. I was so stoked about the showcase that my DJ and I practiced every night for almost 2 weeks. We wanted our show planned out perfectly, down to the last second. I also find that the more prepared you are, the easier it is to switch it up on the fly if something goes wrong. We rehearsed in his basement until 1 a.m. most nights, going through the intro, the songs, and what I'd say in between. I still had to wake up early for work though, and one night we were up so late that I fell asleep during a meeting the next day. My boss and I were visiting another company that we were thinking of hiring for our systems, and it was so boring I began to nod off. When we got in the car afterward to drive back to the office, my boss gave me an earful. He told me it was embarrassing that I had nodded off and to just stay home next time I'm going to be in that condition. I felt pretty whack about it, and I never let it happen again. The day of the showcase came fast, and I invited all of my friends to help me pack the place. This was the night I was getting signed. We arrived early at the venue to set up the merchandise and do a sound check, and it was the first time I got to meet the Hawk Nelson guys. I had the merchandise table looking pro with my laptop playing my music video for the song Session, and I had just finished setting up when I bumped into the president of Tooth and Nail Records. I was surprised at how down to earth he was. We talked about touring, music, and skateboarding. He wasn't anything like I had pictured a president of a record label would be. He came across as just another fan of music and very genuine. Now I was even more excited to play. By the time the show started, the place was packed with some rowdy kids. We played a crazy live performance, got the audience involved, and rocked their faces off. In a flash, our set was done and the curtains closed. During the set change, Daniel, aka Brio from Hawk Nelson, said, "Go get that record deal, bro. You guys killed it." When I got off stage, Trevor and the president of Tooth and Nail said they loved my set. My friends gave me daps and pounds, and I was smiling ear to ear. The night couldn't have been going better until it took a nosedive. One of my producers at the time kept urging me to have the meeting that night with the president and seal the deal. He kept saying, "Don't exclude us now, bro." So I asked Trevor if we could meet about the record deal briefly, and he agreed. We all sat down with the president of the label. The problem was that it wasn't just my producer in the room, a few of my crew came in too. Immediately, my friend started shooting off his mouth. How much is the advance going to be? Do we get a budget for a music video? What about marketing? What is the label going to do? It was absolutely the wrong way to start a record deal meeting. I hadn't even been given a formal offer yet. It wasn't the time for negotiations. I was totally embarrassed. I started kicking him under the table with my foot, but he wouldn't shut up. The president of the label looked a little ticked off, and the meeting ended quickly. But I said goodbye to him and Trevor, and I drove home that night thinking everything would be okay. The moral of the story obviously is, never bring your hip-hop crew to a business meeting. Sure enough, right after lunch the next day, my cell phone rang. It was Trevor. I shut the door to my office immediately thinking, sweet, he's going to tell me what Tooth and Nail thought about the show and talk about the deal. Instead, he told me he felt like I had broken his trust because of what took place in the meeting and he couldn't help me anymore. My heart dropped to the floor. I started crying on the phone and tried to apologize for what happened. Trevor was upset too, but he had to follow his heart. He wished me all the best and hung up the phone. We parted ways. I was devastated. I couldn't tell if I was more angry or hurt or what. There were so many emotions running through my mind that day. Here I had a great job that I was successful at. I didn't need music to earn a living. A few times while I was driving home that day, I thought, that's it, I'm done, forget it. I was up, I was down, I was swearing, crying, and punching my steering wheel. I parked on the side of the road around the corner from Melanie's house and sat there screaming and bawling my eyes out. In the midst of the panic and disappointment, somehow the original dream God gave me surfaced in my mind. It was an image of me performing in front of a sea of people and sharing Jesus. It reminded me that it wasn't just about the music, there was a message God wanted me to deliver. I felt God gave me an assignment, and until I'd completed it, I wasn't done. I wanted to quit so badly. I was tired of pushing and pulling, trying to make it happen on my own. I felt like a rat in its wheel, running, and getting nowhere. Maybe that was the problem. All this time, I was trying to make it happen on my own instead of letting God do His thing. I knew I had to keep going, and discipline was what got me through. I kept writing, performing, and I kept a healthier balance with life, church, and work. I finished recording the appropriately named album, My Own Thing, and released it in Canada. About a year after it was out, I called Trevor just to keep him in the loop, and I was shocked that he still wanted to help me out. Of course, only if my friends or producers weren't involved in any way. I recorded more music and released the hit song Skills featuring Trevor from Thousand Foot Crutch, and I did eventually sign with Tooth and Nail Records, who released my first international album Epiphany in 2006. It was such a long road of twists and turns, bumps and potholes, but because my discipline had prepared me, I made it. I can still see myself standing in my sunroom in my condo on a sunny afternoon when the president phoned me. He said, "Manafest, I want to license your records and do a 3-album deal with you. These are the points and terms. Cool?" I was like, "Okay, man, draft it up." He said our lawyer would send you a deal memo shortly. And that was it. I hung up the phone and did circles around my tiny condo with my wife. This was the beginning of something great, and I felt like David killing Goliath. Little did I know the journey had just begun. The discipline you learn and the character you build from setting and achieving a goal can be more valuable than the achievement of the goal itself. Bo Bennett. Action steps. Make a list of 3 things you can do daily that require discipline. Maybe it's job hunting, journaling, making time for your family, then set reminders in your phone to do them. Number 2, make a list of 3 things you do daily that lack discipline. Maybe it's watching TV, complaining, or oversleeping.